Happy Halloween, everybody! In the spirit of the season, I thought we'd do well to cover one of Degrassi's horror movie-coded episodes. And I felt that it would only be right this year if we covered that one where a bunch of the kids go and spend the night in a spooky cabin in the woods. Because, as we've established before, on my channel, it is Claire Edwards season. And this one happens to be a big Claire-centered episode, which, doesn't narrow it down that much, actually. I mean, we're talking about season 11 here. But regardless, we'll do it anyway. Real talk, I almost instantly regretted choosing this one, because rewatching this two-part episode and re-educating myself on all the context behind it ended up being much more of a history lesson than I'd bargained for. So if you're like me and you haven't done a comprehensive Degrassi series rewatch in a while, I'm gonna refill you in on where we're at in this convoluted, dramatic-ass step-siblings romance storyline. You'll want to sit down for this one. Season 11, episodes 30 and 31, titled Nowhere to Run, is actually a Halloween-coded two-parter that really takes place at the end of summer vacation. The two-parter immediately before Nowhere to Run was 2011's prom episode, and to sum that one up, Bianca was still tangled up with Vince the drug dealer, which was only adding to her ongoing legal troubles. Meanwhile, Drew Torres has broken up with Bianca and is currently going out with student council president Katie Matlin. Meow! Evil cat voice. Adam Torres has been shot at the dangerous Degrassi prom. He's okay now, though. And finally, Helen and Glenn have announced their engagement, to which Claire responded by hard launching her relationship with Jake, you know, her now future stepbrother. Consequently, Glenn has convinced Jake to break up with Claire in order to preserve whatever is left of the normalcy in their house, which Claire characteristically did not take well. And by the time today's storyline starts, it's established that Jake has spent almost the entire summer away from the house, and the two of them are still not speaking. Okay, are we good? Good. Then let's hop to it and break down today's festive Halloween storyline, Nowhere to Run. We open on a classic dark and stormy night as we peer through Claire's bedroom window. Out of nowhere, she screams at something, which turns out to be a dress.
Come on, the dress isn't that bad.
This happens to be the dress that she has to wear to Helen and Glenn's wedding tomorrow. Poor Claire has been dragged through so many traumatic, convoluted romance plots by now. She's resorted to expressing herself via wordless screaming in Ali Bandari's face, who hasn't been there before. Oh, and Ali's there, by the way. She asks Claire if she's spoken to Jake lately, and as we said, Claire has not spoken to him since prom. Claire goes on to say that she still has feelings for Jake, but as he's clearly moved on, she plans to do the same. Right then, the girls hear something thumping around in Claire's closet. They go to look, they find nothing there, but then the bedroom door flies open so Jake can jump scare them with this long box he's carrying around. He wants to talk to Claire, but she's sticking to her guns, and she's not gonna allow it. So Jake's like, okay, see you at the wedding. But before he leaves, Claire blurts out that perhaps Jake leaving for the summer was the best choice that he could have made, considering they're going to be bro and sis now. Which just reminds me of how hilarious it is that Darcy hasn't been present for any of these massive developments in her family's life. Realistically, this is really weird, isn't it? Does she even know that she has a new brother? We'll never find out. Anyway, the future siblings promise each other that starting tomorrow at the wedding, there's no more weirdness allowed between them. Say it with me, everyone. Let's see how that goes. When Jake goes back out into the hallway, though, he gets really depressed all of a sudden, and he opens up that long box in his arms to reveal that he's been carrying around a bouquet of flowers for Claire, starting to look like neither bro nor sis are fully over it yet. We cut from there to Katie Katie and Drew in Drew's basement room the following morning. Katie's having Drew help her with her school president business, back to school posters that have to go up at school the first day, which Drew understandably doesn't feel is the most fun way he could be spending his last few days of summer. Then all of a sudden, Bianca arrives with a box, demanding use of the table for some work that she has to do for Drew's dad's office. This is part of a plea bargain having to do with Bianca's connection to the guy that shot Adam at the prom. It was a whole thing. But like I always say, not important for us today. Also, apparently she's on blockbuster duty because Adam's been having her check out all these horror movies for him to watch while he heals from his wound. Now, Katie realizes that this means that Drew and Bianca have been watching horror movies together, which then makes her realize that this whole summer vacation, those two have probably been having much more fun together than Drew's been having with her. So Katie makes the uncharacteristic decision to stop doing all Degrassi-related stuff today. She's like, why don't we go to lunch on me? Like, it's the sexiest idea she's ever had, which... yeah, probably. She's an overachieving teenage girl. And again, Drew is desperate for any level of fun, so of course he's happy for a change in plans, and the two of them leave Bianca and Adam behind at the house. Meanwhile, it's wedding day over at Claire's, and everyone's getting ready. Allie's back, she's helping Claire curl her hair, and for once today, we get a little glimpse into Allie's personal life with our Degrassi storyline. Rare, I know. She's worried because Dave hasn't been texting her back lately. This is when those two were dating. And the lack of texts is pretty unusual for Dave, so obviously Allie's kind of worried that something might be going on there. So she asks Claire what should she do, but Claire's completely not paying attention. And then Claire trivializes Allie's personal problems, like, whatever girl, your problems are just a fraction of my problems. At least you and Dave's parents aren't all marrying each other. So Allie's like, okay, I get it. My problems are nothing compared to yours, Claire Edwards. And you'd think that Claire would maybe take the hint that she's crossed some kind of friendship line. But no, she doubles down. She's just too fully convinced that she's living everybody's nightmare right now. And how could Allie possibly demand empathy from her on the day of her mother's wedding? And unfortunately, Dave almost proves Claire's point because he chooses right then to finally text Allie back. Claire's all, see? You and your pedestrian drama, Allie Bandari. You should consider yourself lucky your life's not as bad as mine. She doesn't say that exactly, but like, imagine saying that to Allie Bandari, of all people. But Allie is determined to be a good sport about it for some reason, so she just forces a smile, wishes Claire a nice wedding, and then sees herself out to go to the dot because Dave wants to meet up there anyway. We flash forward to the start of the wedding ceremony, and they are doing it real cramped style in Helen and Glenn's living room. Whew, good thing Helen doesn't have two daughters. That'd take up way too much room. Before we get too deep into the ceremony, though, we cut back to Allie meeting Dave at the dot. Allie's being all, oh my god, I feel so silly for thinking anything was wrong back there. Anyway, Dave, is there anything you feel like sharing with me? And Dave's all, actually, now that you brought it up, I should tell you that I hooked up with another girl this summer, but it's over now, so like, don't even worry about it. And Allie's all, I was talking about appetizers, you monster. Of course, Allie breaks things off right then and there. Good for her. As Dave shamefully leaves the scene, Drew, Katie, and Marisol arrive, and they quickly notice that Allie's upset, so they sit down with her. We cut back to the wedding in time for the reception. Jake tries to break the ice with Claire by offering her some cheese, as she politely turns it down. Then Jake reminds Claire that they haven't, really talked things out since he got home, and Claire responds by trying to escape. Jake stops her though, and he asks if she'd like to talk things out for real once their parents are out on their honeymoon. Claire's like, now you want to reconnect? After icing me out all summer? And Jake's like, well, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of time to think while I was icing you out, and I realized that I still love you. Claire doesn't react very well. She's just like, forget this, Jake. You already broke my heart. this is over. So then while Helen calls around the whole family to get some wedding cake, Jake sneaks out of the house for a little breather at the dot. When he gets there, he finds Allie, Drew, Katie, and Marisol. They ask him where he was all summer, and Jake tells them that he was just working as a camp counselor and spending a lot of time alone in his dad's cabin up in the woods. Just realized it's funny that they brought Marisol to this because Katie had enticed Drew out of the house with promise of like a nice little date, a nice little lunch date together. And next thing we know, they've like dragged her best friend along for it. This girl doesn't know how to date. Anyway, Allie's like, wow, it must be nice to have a cabin to escape to whenever life sucks. And Jake's like, you know what? It really is. How about we all escape to my cabin, like, tonight? And of course, everyone's into the idea. Right then, Eli Goldsworthy arrives on the scene riding a bike, which is just a funny image by itself. He's really funny about it, too.
Eli, biking in this heat.
Perfect day for a little schwitz.
And they give him an invite to the cabin as well. At this point, the wedding's over, and we cut to Claire cleaning up around the house until she gets a call from an unknown number, which turns out to be Bianca demanding that Claire hands her phone over to Drew. She says that she needs Drew because Adam can't find the Xbox controller. Why didn't Adam just call Claire? I feel like that would make way more sense. Anyway, Bianca goes on to say that they're having trouble reaching Drew because they probably don't get good reception up there. So this is how Claire finds out that Jake is throwing a party in his cabin that she is not invited to. Predictably, she starts emotionally dumping on Bianca like, oh my god, I do need to talk to Jake. Of course he didn't invite me. I've made such a mistake. Bianca hits the brakes fast on that one.
Okay, TMI.
That Bianca says that Claire better get her ass to that cabin because according to Bianca, cabins equal kisses. And then it hits Bianca how much fun it would be to crash the drama party at that cabin. So she offers to drive Claire there and she doesn't take no for an answer. We cut to the other kids as they arrive at the cabin. The second they get inside, Marisol's complaining about how like outdoors the cabin is. There's too many bugs everywhere. It's just not what she expected for some reason. They toss in this pretty out of place Clue reference.
We have a candlestick, knife, lead pipe, rope, wrench, revolver, magazine.
Then Katie asks Jake how long his family has had the cabin. He says his dad bought it for cheap in 1999 because apparently the old owner caught his wife in there with another man, murdered the other guy with a fire poker, and then he chased his wife into the woods and they were never seen again. So it's been under 5 minutes and Marisol's already regretting everything about this trip. The ghost story definitely didn't help things, but everyone else still wants to have fun and go explore, so they all go out to explore while Marisol sulks on the couch all alone, which is where she finds a bag of old weed wedged between the couch cushions. Score? Next we cut over to Bianca and Claire driving up the mountain. Or, well, they were driving, but they had to stop for a second to check the map because they were really lost. But Claire has no idea how to read a map. This was back when maps were on physical paper, and we still didn't know how to read them back then, as Claire demonstrates in this scene. Bianca gets so annoyed by Claire's map illiteracy, she decides to get back at her by giving her the jitters. She starts saying things like, hey Claire, isn't it so cool that if somebody stabs you in the woods, nobody can hear you scream? And Claire's like, oh my god, shut up. I just want to get to this party on time. And then Bianca calls her out like, don't even, Claire. You're in love with your stepbrother and everyone knows it. Ugh. Embarrassing and true. But then when they try to get the car moving again, it won't start up. So they have to abandon it and walk the rest of the way to the cabin before it gets dark. We cut back to Marisol on the weed couch. She hasn't tried the weed yet, but she's rocking out alone to her iPod to decompress. But then she hears some suspicious noises, so she gets up and investigates a closet. And she finds Katie in there all covered in blood saying, help me. Then this guy with a sheet over his head comes running from the kitchen, waving around that lead pipe from the Clue joke earlier.
Gotcha.
Screw you!
Oh, but it's just Drew and Katie playing a prank. When did these two get back? Marisol is very offended that they pranked her, so she storms off. From there, we check back in with Jake and Allie, who've been collecting kindling and starting a fire outside, and it's officially dark out. They're opening up to each other about their whole situations with Claire and Dave, and how they thought that coming up to the cabin would help them take their minds off of those people, but it just isn't. And then Allie's like, I know this isn't my business, but did you hook up with anybody while you were away from Claire this summer? I think she's asking because part of her still wants to figure out why Dave did what he did. And she wants to see if maybe there's a chance that a guy can cheat on you, but still totally love you. Ugh, poor thing. Jake admits that he thought about it, but to him, even though he and Claire were exes, it still would have felt like cheating at the time, so he didn't. And that makes Allie pretty sad to hear, so Jake breaks out the marshmallows, and the two of them start kind of having a moment by accident. It's clear they're finding comfort in each other because they're both fresh off a breakup, so they end up kissing in front of the fire, and who else but Claire and Bianca suddenly arrive, having just finished their journey from Bianca's car. Bianca's really amused. Claire, not so much. After that, Bianca casually strolls into the cabin while Drew's taking a nap and Katie and Marisol are playing a game together. Before Katie can get pissed off by Bianca's presence, Claire storms in with Jake, and they're having a shouting match. All the drama and confusion starts to peak when the lights cut out. So Jake lights a lantern, revealing that Claire has gone missing. Yeah, she's just gone sprinting and crying into the woods in the dark, like a lunatic. Claire gets lost instantly. And once she's aware of this, she just runs even deeper into the woods. She's just spinning around and going crazy and getting more and more and more lost. And that's when part 1 ends. When part 2 starts, everyone's still freaking out. Jake gets the power back on, and he says he's gonna go look for Claire in the woods. Drew and Allie want to go with him, but Jake's like, "Nuh-uh, Allie, you'll just get in the way." Yeah, unlike Drew Torres over here, Degrassi's resident king of problem solving. Bianca's like, "You're better off here anyway, Allie. Bad shit happens to kids who leave the cabin in a horror movie."
And considering you're the skanky bitch in this scenario, you die first.
Katie gives Drew a little dramatic kiss before he leaves, and then the Degrassi theme song cuts in right here, which is hilarious to me because it just kills the mood. Now over in the woods, Claire's still running around and she's trying to get reception, but no luck. But then she hears something, and she does that dumb horror movie character thing where she's like, "Hello?
Hello?
Hey monster, can you hear me?" And in response, she hears this weird noise. Kind of sounds like a cartoon dog stubbing his toe, which makes Claire trip and she busts her hand open somehow. Back in the cabin, Marisol's in full panic mode. She's like, "Lights don't just go out like that, Katie. Girls never had to change a light bulb before, apparently." And she goes on like, "Something bad is happening, guys. That's why we're all fighting and getting lost in the woods right now. God knows an unsupervised group of teenagers would never get into this kind of trouble organically." And Bianca's totally living for this meltdown. But Katie isn't. So she offers to make Marisol some herbal tea to help calm her down, which reminds Marisol of the couch weed. Bianca's like, "Looks legit to me. Try it." You know, like a trustworthy friend who cares about your well-being. Katie tries to convince Marisol that smoking weed right now is only gonna make her more paranoid. But Marisol's like, "No, this is your fault because you pranked me, so I have to smoke the couch weed." So they're gonna do that. But Allie makes them do it outside because her parents will kill her if she smells like weed tomorrow. Meanwhile, Jake and Drew are still looking around for Claire outside. Jake vents to Drew about the Claire situation. He says he's confused because the last thing that Claire told him was that she was over him, but now she's mad at him, and Drew helpfully misogynifies the situation to explain to Jake, well, you know girls, they say one thing, they mean another. Right then, they find Claire's headband on the ground. It's covered in blood, and Drew starts freaking out like, what if the murderer got her? And Jake's like, dude, it was just a stupid story. And then the flashlight dies. Oh my god, guys. Lights don't just cut out like that. Haunted flashlight! Back at the cabin, Marisol discovers that there's a shed outside, and she decides to take Katie in there to have their weed sesh. Meanwhile, in the cabin, Allie's anxiously waiting for the boys to bring Claire back. Bianca's like, wow, Allie, if Claire never comes back, you're probably never gonna forgive yourself, huh? Whatever. Just hang in there. Very helpful, Bianca. And then the two hear a knock at the door, but Bianca's like, wait, no, don't answer that. Because the boys know that the door is unlocked, so like, who would be knocking? And then someone puts their big ol' hand on the window and scares the shit out of them. Back in the shed, Marisol and Katie hear the girls in the cabin screaming away at the scary hand. So Marisol doesn't want to go anywhere near the cabin now, you know, in case that's the murderer that's getting screamed at. She would much rather stay right here where she is, prepackaged in this sardine can of a tool shed, and high as balls to the point of defenselessness. Thank you very much. The Katie insists that she has to go back into the cabin just in case Drew gets back, and Bianca starts working her feminine wiles on him. And Marisol's like, ha! Who's paranoid now, bitch? So now Katie is like really done with Marisol, so she tries to leave the shed. But, uh-oh, looks like they've been mysteriously locked inside. Awesome. But before Katie can get upset about it, Marisol strategically blows smoke into her face, and now they're both high. Back with Claire in the woods, she's still trying to figure out what to do about that hand wound, and how to get out of this endless spooky forest. That's when we see glimpses of somebody circling around her in the foreground. But don't worry, because it's only Eli.
It's okay, calm down. It's me, it's Eli.
He just grabs her from behind. Of course, she nearly shits herself. Like, what did he think she'd do? Turns out, Eli was the one who was knocking on the cabin door just a few minutes ago. And look, he's gone and found Claire within like 5 minutes, while the other guys are still walking around in circles somewhere. You call yourself an orienteer, Jake? Somebody in the comments finally told me what an orienteer was. Shout out. Bang bang. Also, this motherfucker biked most of the way here. Holy shit. Also, this motherfucker just goes around slapping his hand on windows in the dark like some kind of unsocialized werewolf. I mean, I guess that's on brand for him. Anyway, Claire lets Eli take a peek at the old hand wound. Back in the shed, our party girls are really starting to lose it. They're pounding away at the door for someone to let them out, but no dice. So in her marijuana wisdom, Katie decides that they're gonna dig themselves out from under the shed, chicken run style, with these little hand trowels that she finds. The two get digging, but they quickly hit something hard under the soil, and they uncover this little box with rings in it, engraved with the names David and Joyce Pratt. Marisol naturally deduces that they're the people from the ghost story, as she flies into another emotional tailspin. Just what we need.
What if the jealous killer is the one who locked us in? What if he hurt our friends? We're next!
But they quickly shut up when they notice a shadow coming from the other side of the door. Back in the woods, Eli asks Claire why she's out there, and why is everybody acting all paranoid and screaming and what the fuck is even happening. Claire's like, let's just say a certain someone moved on from our relationship before I was ready. What, again? Then Claire's like, is it weird to be glad that you're the one who found me, Eli? I don't think so. Considering your most likely alternatives were like an incel ghost or a pack of wolves, I'd be pretty glad I saw Eli too. Right then, Jake and Drew finally find them. Jake's like, you okay, Claire? And Claire's like it matters to you. So she and Eli walk away. They don't even need Jake to orienteer them back to the cabin. Eli's inner compass is still apparently working just fine. Back in the shed, the scary shadow has moved on, so Katie's ready to break out of this thing once and for all. Because Because after all this, her priority is still that Drew and Bianca might be alone right now. Katie doesn't even have time for Chicken Run anymore. We're switching to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre channel now, girls. Marisol's like, hold up, extremely high teenage girl. Safety first. As she slaps this pair of goggles on Katie's face, which, let's be real, was probably chock full of spiders. But again, we got no time to waste here. Katie revs up the chainsaw in that tiny enclosed space. I mean, who even needs a serial killer at this point? These kids are clearly not built to survive. Anyway, Katie leatherfaces the hell out of that door, and then she and Marisol sprint to the cabin. They start babbling to Allie about the murderer, locking them in the shed, and finding the rings and the chainsaw, and blah blah blah. Bianca comes back into the cabin to laugh at them. So Katie accuses Bianca of locking her and Marisol in the shed as a way to get rid of Katie so she can have Drew alter herself. Everything's about this boy. Bianca denies it, but she's like having the time of her life. She just lives to be confronted by insecure girls. Bianca says that if Katie is still so insecure about Drew being alone with other girls, the relationship probably isn't meant to be, sweetheart. That's when Claire and the boys finally return. Allie tries to ask Claire if she's okay, but she gets ignored. We flash forward to a moment later, where Jake's helping Claire out with her hand wound. He says he's glad she came, which she does not believe. Jake more or less blames the kiss on Allie, and I get that she initiated it, but like, dude. Jake insists that while he really tried to get over Claire this summer, he just couldn't. And when he found her headband out there all covered in blood, he was really worried that she got hurt, and that filled him with so much fear and regret. And then Claire cuts him off to say that she'd thought about kissing Eli to get back at him. And Jake's like, okay. Jake apologizes to Claire for running away from her all summer. He says he is done running, and he's ready for another chance if Claire is willing to give him one. Back in the living room, Drew asks the girls what they got up to while he was gone. Bianca's like, oh yeah, tell Drew what we got up to, Katie. But then Marisol's at the window, and she blurts out that she sees someone walking around out there. But everybody's in the cabin. So Drew and Eli peer out the window together. They spot some big guy picking up the discarded chainsaw out there. They fly into a panic. Lock the door! Jake comes back into the room and everyone's just info dumping on him. There's a guy outside. Chainsaw! Look, we found these rings in the ground. Jake's looking at the rings like, Pratt, that's the name of the previous cabin owner. And that's where Bianca reaches her limit with all this spooky shit. She is hella scared now, but not like so scared she doesn't have one last cheap shot in her.
He wants to kill us! Or kidnap a virgin! Claire, Katie, sacrifice yourselves!
Everyone stay calm!
So Jake grabs an axe before answering the door.
Dad.
Yeah, it turns out it's just Helen and Glenn. And Glenn's pretty pissed about the state of his chainsaw. These two canceled their entire honeymoon because Claire didn't answer her phone when they called because she had no reception. Might want to get used to that for a little while, Helen. They figured out where the kids were because Allie's mom had left them a voicemail about the fake plans that Allie had told her that she was having with Claire. So that's how they solved the mystery. The kids show Glenn the rings that they found, and he tells them that he just buried them underground when he first bought the place, which is kind of weird. And with all that said and done, Glenn kicks everyone out of his cabin. Later, everyone's getting ready to drive back into town together. Jake asks Claire if she forgives him, and she just tells him to never run away from her again. So I think that's a yes. Allie comes over and awkwardly asks if they have room for a third on the way home, and Jake's like, I'll give you 2 a minute. Allie apologizes to Claire for kissing Jake, saying she was going through something really shitty, so that's why she made such a bad decision. And Claire's all, what could have possibly happened to you that was so horrible, Allie? And Allie's like, you know what? What's even the point of trying to explain myself to you, since you think my problems are so pedestrian anyway? So Claire tells Allie to kindly go find someone else to ride home with, and then she immediately offers Eli a ride home right in front of Allie. Meanwhile, Bianca's asking Drew to help her jumpstart her car down the road. She offers to walk down and meet the rest of them there, but then Katie steps in and she tells Drew to offer Bianca a spot in their car so she can ride down there with them instead. Marisol asks Katie what that was about, and Katie's like, Bianca just has too much power over me. I don't want her to keep thinking that I'm jealous. Even though I secretly still am, I just don't want her to think that. Katie also mentions that she tweaked her knee last night, which does come into play the next time we see her. Let me know if you guys want me to cover that one sometime. Luckily, Drew also offers Allie a ride in his car. Poor Allie is like, wow, I just lost my boyfriend and my best friend within 24 hours. Back to school is gonna be so fun. We flash forward to the Edwards-Martin household that night. Jake's eating leftover wedding cake, because of course he is. The boy's always eating. He's also eating the piece that has Claire's face printed on it, because of course he is.
Are you eating my face?
Only if you let me.
Children, stop. The two of them almost kiss, but luckily the parents get back from antiquing. Claire takes herself to bed looking all dreamy, as if she actually thinks she's in a better situation now than she was before. And then we end the episode on a split screen with the two siblings in bed, thinking about each other. Jake and Claire's whole thing has always just kind of made me wince. But that's enough from me for today. Remember to keep your chainsaws out of children's reach, and I'll see you next time.